The black Range Rover pulled up to the Sky News headquarters at precisely 7:47 p.m., 13 minutes before the live broadcast was scheduled to begin. Prince William stepped out into the London evening, his navy suit pressed to perfection, every thread serving the monarchy's carefully curated image. The security detail moved like a well-rehearsed ballet, creating a protective corridor through the modest crowd of photographers and royal correspondents who had gathered despite the short notice. Inside the gleaming lobby, Palace Press Secretary Miranda Hartwell clutched her phone with white knuckles. "Remember, Your Royal Highness," she whispered as they walked toward the lifts, "this is damage control, not confession. Dignified, measured responses. We've prepared 3 key messages about service, duty, and moving forward." Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from. And if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed because tomorrow I've saved something extra special for you. William nodded absently, his mind elsewhere. The leaked excerpts from the Solara report had been trending on social media for 6 days straight. Hashtag Solaragate, hashtag Palace Cover-Up, hashtag Protect the Staff. The hashtags felt like digital stones thrown at palace windows, each one chipping away at the institution he'd been born to protect. 3 floors above, in Studio A, Alina Frey adjusted her earpiece and scanned her notes one final time. At 42, she had spent 15 years covering the royals, first as a palace correspondent, then as an investigative journalist who'd grown tired of the choreographed theater of royal reporting. Her producers had been clear: keep it courteous, keep it contained, keep it ratings-friendly. But 20 minutes ago, her encrypted phone had buzzed with a message from an anonymous source. Attached were 3 documents she'd never seen before, pages from the internal investigation that had supposedly been inconclusive, the same investigation that had cost at least 4 palace staff members their peace of mind and possibly their careers. "Alina, we're at 2 minutes," called her producer, James, from the control room. "The palace has confirmed no questions about specific staff members. Keep it institutional, not personal." She nodded, but her fingers traced the edge of the printed pages hidden beneath her standard interview notes. Personal was exactly what this had always been. In the green room, William sat rigidly in a leather chair while a makeup artist touched up the slight shadows under his eyes. He'd barely slept since his father's stark warning 3 days earlier. "The crown survives because we protect it from those who would use it for their own gain. Do what you must, William, but protect what matters." The words had felt like a weight settling on his chest. Protect what matters. But what mattered? The institution? The truth? The people caught in between? His private secretary, Edward Pembridge, leaned close. "The key phrases are in your notes, sir. Regrettable misunderstandings, learning and growing, focus on service. The public wants to see accountability, but controlled accountability." Through the monitor in the green room, William could see the Sky News studio, clean lines, blue lighting, 2 chairs positioned at a careful angle. Everything designed to suggest serious journalism while maintaining the proper distance between crown and commoner. The digital ticker at the bottom of the screen already showed climbing viewership numbers, 2.3 million and rising. Across London, in a modest flat in Hampstead, Sir Godfrey Haynes poured himself a whiskey and settled in front of his television. At 74, the former palace ethics officer had served 3 monarchs with unwavering discretion. Until last week, when he'd walked to a postbox in the rain and dropped an envelope that would change everything. He'd kept copies of the real report for 2 years, watching as the sanitized version was quietly buried and the staff members who'd spoken up were transferred or encouraged to resign. The weight of that silence had grown unbearable. Now, watching the pre-broadcast countdown, he wondered if Prince William had any idea what was about to unfold. In Studio A, the final checks were complete. William entered with his practiced smile, warm enough to seem genuine, controlled enough to maintain dignity. He shook Alina's hand with the firm grip he'd perfected over decades of public appearances. "Your Royal Highness, thank you for joining us tonight," Alina said, her voice professionally warm. "Thank you for having me," William replied, settling into his chair. The lights were brighter than he'd expected, and he could feel the heat of them against his face. In homes, pubs, and offices across Britain, millions of screens displayed the same image, the future king, perfectly postured, facing a journalist whose reputation for getting to uncomfortable truths was well earned. The live comment streams were already moving too fast to read, a digital Greek chorus of opinion, speculation, and judgment. James watched the viewing numbers climb past 3 million as the opening credits rolled. This wasn't just an interview anymore, it was an event, the kind of television moment that could shift public opinion, end careers, or change the course of an ancient institution. As the red recording light blinked on, Alina looked directly into the camera with her characteristic composure. She'd been given her instructions, but some truths, she decided, were more important than instructions. Good evening, I'm Alina Frey, and welcome to the special edition of Sky News Tonight. With me is Prince William, the Prince of Wales, joining us live from our London studios. The camera pulled back to show both figures. William's posture textbook royal, spine straight, hands relaxed in his lap, expression attentive but guarded. Your Royal Highness, thank you again for being here, particularly given the challenging circumstances the royal family has faced in recent weeks. Thank you, Alina. I'm pleased to have the opportunity to speak directly to the British people about the issues that matter to all of us: service, duty, and our shared future. Perfect. Exactly as rehearsed. In the control room, James nodded approvingly. Clean, dignified, on message. Let's start with something many of our viewers are asking tonight. How does the monarchy remain relevant in an age where institutions are increasingly questioned, where transparency is demanded, and where social media can amplify every whisper of discontent? William had fielded this question countless times in various forms. His answer rolled out with practiced ease. The monarchy endures because it evolves. We've seen tremendous changes over the past decades in how we engage with the public, in our charitable focus, in our understanding of service itself. What remains constant is our commitment to the British people and to the Commonwealth realms. The live comment feed was a blur of reactions. The same rehearsed answers. He's dodging already. Actually sounds sincere. Where's Harry? Alina nodded thoughtfully. You mention evolution, and that's interesting, because one of the criticisms leveled at the institution is that while it may evolve publicly, behind palace walls, there's still an outdated hierarchy that can be challenging for those who work within it. A flicker, so brief most viewers would miss it, crossed William's features. The royal household employs hundreds of dedicated staff members, and we're enormously grateful for their service. We strive to create a working environment that reflects our values of respect and dignity. And when that environment falls short of those values, William paused for a half-second too long. We always seek to address concerns constructively and privately. The viewing numbers hit 3.8 million. In the control room, producers leaned forward. This wasn't the territory they'd been warned to avoid, but Alina was approaching it like a surgeon, precise, careful cuts rather than dramatic slashes.
That's an admirable goal, Alina continued, her voice maintaining its professional warmth. But in recent weeks, we've seen leaked documents suggesting that some concerns within the royal household weren't addressed constructively. In fact, some former staff members have alleged their concerns were dismissed entirely. William's media training kicked in. Alina, I think it's important to remember that allegations aren't facts. The royal family takes all workplace concerns seriously, but we also have a responsibility to protect the privacy and dignity of everyone involved, both staff and family members. Including the Duchess of Solara? The name hung in the air like smoke. William's jaw tightened almost imperceptibly. My family's private matters should remain private. But Alina wasn't backing down. With respect, sir, when private matters involve public employees and public money, don't they become matters of public interest? The comment streams exploded. Get him, Alina. He looks uncomfortable. This is brutal already. #SolaraTruth. In Buckingham Palace, King Charles III watched from his private study, his fingers drumming against the arm of his chair. This wasn't going according to plan. William shifted in his chair, a movement so slight it barely registered, but palace watchers would analyze it frame by frame for days. The royal family has always balanced transparency with the need to protect individuals, all individuals, from unfair scrutiny. Even when protecting some individuals means failing to protect others? The question landed like a physical blow. William blinked, his composure cracking for just a moment. "I'm not sure I understand what you're implying." "I'm not implying anything, Your Royal Highness. I'm asking directly. When allegations of workplace bullying are made within the royal household, whose protection takes priority?" The studio fell silent, except for the quiet hum of cameras and equipment. William stared at Alina for 3 full seconds, an eternity in live television. "Every person who works with my family deserves to be treated with dignity and respect. When concerns are raised, they are investigated appropriately." Investigated by whom? By the appropriate personnel within the royal household. And if those investigations find concerning behavior, then appropriate action is taken. What kind of appropriate action? William's hands, which had remained perfectly still throughout the interview, now clasped together. "I think we're getting into areas that are better addressed through proper channels rather than public speculation." Alina leaned forward slightly. "Your Royal Highness, with the greatest respect, some would argue that proper channels have failed. That's why we're having this conversation at all." The viewing figures hit 4.2 million. On social media, #RoyalInterview was trending worldwide, and the clips were already being dissected, memed, and shared across platforms. In Hampstead, Sir Godfrey Haynes watched with growing tension. Prince William was handling himself well, but Alina Frey was just getting started. "Let me ask you this," Alina continued. "Would you be willing to support an independent investigation into workplace practices within the royal household, not conducted by palace officials, but by external experts?" William's pause stretched long enough that viewers at home began to notice. Any investigation would need to be appropriate to the unique nature of the institution? Is the unique nature of the institution more important than the well-being of the people who serve it? And there it was, the question that cut to the heart of everything. William looked directly at Alina, and for a moment the cameras caught something raw in his expression. Not the polished prince, but a man grappling with an impossible choice between loyalty and conscience. "The institution serves the people," he said quietly. "All people." "Then you won't mind if we examine how well it's been serving some particular people?" Alina reached beneath her notes and withdrew a single sheet of paper. The paper was unremarkable. Standard A4, printed in black ink, official letterhead partially visible at the top. But as Alina placed it on the small table between herself and William, it might as well have been a loaded weapon. William's eyes fixed on the document, and his carefully maintained composure cracked visibly. His media training had prepared him for hostile questions, uncomfortable topics, even ambush interviews. But this This was something different entirely. "Your Royal Highness," Alina said, her voice still professionally measured but with a new edge of steel. "Are you familiar with the Solara report?" The question hung in the air like a challenge. William's mouth opened slightly, then closed. The 5-second pause felt like an eternity in live television. "I'm not sure what you're referring to," he said finally, but his voice lacked the conviction of his earlier answers. "This is a page from an internal royal household investigation conducted 2 years ago, following serious allegations made by several staff members. The investigation centered on claims of workplace bullying, emotional distress, and what one witness called a systematic intimidation of junior staff." As she spoke, Alina turned the paper toward the camera. Viewers could see the official seal, the formal language, and most importantly, the heavily redacted sections that left only fragments of sentences visible. The live comment streams went into overdrive. "Oh shit, she's got receipts. William looks like he's seen a ghost. This is actually happening. Hashtag receipts provided." "Alina," William said, and his voice carried a warning tone that hadn't been there before. "I was assured this interview would focus on the future of the monarchy, not on—" He gestured vaguely at the paper. "Not on accountability," she finished. "Your Royal Highness, this report details specific incidents where staff members were allegedly reduced to tears, where some required medical attention for stress-related symptoms, and where at least one person considered taking their own life due to workplace conditions." The camera caught William flinching at the last phrase. For a moment, the mask of royal training slipped entirely, revealing something that looked almost like guilt. "These are serious allegations," he said carefully, "but they were investigated." "Were they?" Alina interrupted, her professional composure now showing its first cracks. "Because, according to this document, the investigation was terminated before witness interviews could be completed. Several staff members who had requested to give testimony were told their input was no longer required." She turned another page, this one showing a different section with fewer redactions. "Would you like me to read some of the witness statements that were collected before the investigation was shut down?" "That's not—" she began, then stopped. His hands, which had been clasped in his lap, now gripped the arms of his chair. "Those documents are confidential."
William shifted uncomfortably. Perhaps we should consider actually addressing their concerns rather than managing around them. The room fell silent. Charles's eyes narrowed. "William, the crown has survived the abdication, Diana's death, and countless other crises by remembering one fundamental truth. We are not ordinary people subject to ordinary judgment. We are symbols, and symbols cannot afford to appear weak." Director of Communications James Whitmore spread out several documents. "We need Prince William to make a statement that reframes the narrative completely, not defensive, but authoritative, something that reminds people who they're dealing with." "What kind of statement?" William asked, though he already dreaded the answer. "One that makes clear the royal family will not be held hostage by disgruntled former employees seeking publicity and financial gain," Charles replied. "The Duchess of Solara and her husband have commercialized every interaction with this family. We draw the line here." William felt something cold settle in his stomach. "You want me to humiliate them publicly?" "I want you to protect what matters," Charles said firmly. "Your mother tried to fight the institution from within, and it destroyed her. Learn from her mistakes."
At the far end of the table, Sir Godfrey Haynes, then still serving as palace ethics advisor, stood abruptly. "This is unconscionable. You're asking the future king to abandon his moral authority for short-term political gain." Charles's voice turned glacial. "Godfrey, your services are no longer required." As Haynes gathered his papers and left, William caught his eye. The older man's expression was one of profound disappointment, not in the institution, but in William himself. "The interview was scheduled for Thursday," Hartwell continued as if nothing had happened. "Sky News has agreed to keep it respectful." Back in the studio, "Your Royal Highness," Alina said, her voice cutting through William's visible distress, "you said earlier that all workplace concerns are investigated appropriately, but the testimony we just heard suggests otherwise. Can you explain that discrepancy?" William looked up, his media training warring with something deeper, exhaustion perhaps, or shame. "Every situation is complex. There are always multiple perspectives." "Are you suggesting that young woman was lying?" "No, William faltered. "I'm saying that investigations need to consider all viewpoints." Alina reached for another document, this one bearing the official palace seal. "This is an internal memo dated 6 weeks after the Solara investigation began. It's marked confidential and signed by your private secretary. Would you like me to read the relevant section?" William's eyes fixed on the paper with the intensity of a man watching his execution warrant being signed. "Investigation to be concluded immediately," Alina read aloud. "Findings: insufficient evidence to substantiate claims. Staff concerns appear rooted in unrealistic expectations of royal service. Recommend enhanced orientation for future hires regarding appropriate workplace dynamics." The viewing figures climbed past 6.8 million as social media exploded with outrage. "Enhanced orientation," Alina repeated, looking directly at William. "That was the solution? Teaching staff to accept what they had experienced?" The investigation was thorough. According to this memo, 5 witnesses were never interviewed. 4 others withdrew their cooperation after being told their positions might be re-evaluated. Does that sound thorough to you? William's silence stretched long enough that producers began to wonder if he would simply refuse to continue. "Your Royal Highness, I'm going to ask you a direct question, and I think the British people deserve a direct answer. Did you personally intervene to limit the scope of this investigation?" "No," William said immediately. "Did anyone in your household act on your behalf to protect family members from embarrassing revelations?" Another pause, shorter this time, but loaded with implication. "The royal household acts in the best interests of the institution, even when those interests conflict with justice?" William's composure cracked completely. "You don't understand the pressures we face, the impossible balance between public service and private dignity." "Then help me understand why private dignity matters more than public accountability." Alina leaned back in her chair, her next question prepared like a surgical instrument. "Your Royal Highness, I want to ask you about someone who understood those pressures better than most." William's head snapped up, suddenly alert to a shift in tone. "Your mother, Diana, Princess of Wales, spoke publicly about feeling trapped by palace systems, about being silenced when she tried to address problems. She famously said there were 3 people in her marriage, but perhaps there were even more, all the courtiers and advisors and press secretaries whose job was to protect the institution above all else." The mention of Diana hit William like a physical blow. His carefully maintained posture slumped, and for a moment, he looked not like a future king, but like a middle-aged man carrying decades of unprocessed grief. "My mother," he began, then stopped. "Your mother fought against a system that prioritized image over truth, institutional loyalty over human dignity.
She paid a terrible price for that fight. Alina's voice softened, but her words remained precise. If she were watching tonight, if she could see palace employees being silenced and discredited to protect the family's reputation, what do you think she would say? William stared at Alina for a long moment, and when he spoke, his voice was barely above a whisper. She would be ashamed. The studio fell completely silent. Even the cameras seemed to hold their breath. She would be ashamed of me, William continued, his voice growing stronger but more broken. Of all of us, because she understood that the crown is only as strong as the trust people place in it, and we've betrayed that trust. In the control room, producer James was frantically gesturing to his team. This wasn't damage control anymore. This was a public breakdown broadcast to nearly 7 million viewers. Your mother chose truth over comfort. She paid the ultimate price for that choice. Do you have the courage to make the same choice? William looked directly into the camera, tears visible in his eyes. I don't know if I do, but I know I can't keep lying. The admission hung in the air like a funeral bell, marking the death of the old William and, perhaps, the birth of something unprecedented, a royal who chose humanity over image. Then let's start with the truth, Alina said. William reached into his jacket pocket and withdrew a folded sheet of paper, the carefully crafted statement his team had prepared, designed to humiliate the Sussexes and restore royal authority. He looked at it for a moment, then slowly tore it in half. The sound of ripping paper carried clearly through the studio microphones. I came here tonight to read a statement that would have been cruel, calculated, and ultimately dishonest. I was going to tell you that the monarchy stands above petty grievances, that we won't be held hostage by disgruntled former employees seeking attention and financial gain. He let the torn pieces fall to the floor. But I can't do it. Not anymore. Because the truth is, we failed those people. We failed them spectacularly. Then we've spent 2 years trying to convince ourselves and you that we didn't. The viewing figures hit 7.3 million, the highest for any royal broadcast since Diana's funeral. I haven't read the full Solara report because I was afraid of what I might find. I was afraid of having to choose between my family and my conscience, between the institution I was born to serve and the people that institution hurt. William's voice grew stronger, more certain. But there is no choice. There never was. A monarchy that protects itself at the expense of the vulnerable isn't worth protecting. In Buckingham Palace, King Charles watched his heir destroy decades of carefully maintained royal mystique in real time. The investigation was terminated not because it was inconclusive, but because it was about to reach conclusions we didn't want to face. Staff members were transferred, silenced, and discredited because their truth was inconvenient. William looked directly at the camera, tears visible in his eyes. To every person who has worked for this family and felt unheard, unprotected, or humiliated, I am profoundly sorry. Your service deserved better than our silence. The social media response was instantaneous and overwhelming. #HeSpoke began trending worldwide within minutes. The monarchy exists to serve the British people, all of them, including those who work within our walls. If we cannot treat our own employees with basic human dignity, we have no moral authority to serve anyone. Alina sat back, her job complete.
6 months later, William stood before Parliament announcing the establishment of an independent Royal Household Ethics Committee. The Solara report was published in full. Staff who had been silenced received formal apologies and compensation. The monarchy survived, but transformed. No longer untouchable, but finally, genuinely trusted. Sometimes the most powerful thing a king can do is choose to be human first. Up next, we have 2 more incredible stories that are waiting for you. Just click the image you want to watch and it will take you there.
If you enjoyed this video, make sure to subscribe. It would mean a lot.